Chapter 21. Two sets of furious faces appear to me. The Galleons were represented by a multi-armed slug of sorts. She had no name, only a title, a designation. She was life-giver of the Giant Sea. And indeed she was giving birth as she appeared to my enhanced sight. One after another, small, squirming grubs slid gooey and red from slits arranged in a circle around her middle. The grubs were picked up and carried away by attendants, the type of creatures I'd seen writhing in vacuums just moments earlier. Life-giver of the Giant Sea was enraged. "Who are you, nothing, to interfere with me? I speak to a nothing. Obey me." She spoke a strange language, but with the database I had available there were few languages not immediately understandable to me. The Inner-Worlders had a more pleasing appearance, at least to my sensibilities. For one thing, they were winged, and I had the Ketran prejudice in favor of the flighted. And they had multiple, bright yellow eyes. The one who spoke for them called himself Captain Wee, which had a certain whimsical sound to me. Captain Wee was polite, but still managed to convey hostility. "Stranger, please stand away. We have business with the Galleon vermin." "I am unwilling to allow this slaughter to continue," I said mildly. "This is not your concern," Captain Wee pointed out. "But we do admire your evident technological superiority. Were you to side with us and exterminate the Galleons, we would be happy to ally ourselves with you." "That's a very gracious offer," I said dryly. "But I don't think there's going to be any exterminating. Nothing. Disappear, nothing. Avoid my notice." The life-giver ordered. She could not believe that I refused to obey. It was an arrogance that was perhaps a function of her essential biology. Perhaps it is hard to remain humble when you are known as life-giver. But what was odd, what was surprising and disturbing to me, was my own emotional reaction. I was happy. I was talking to real, living creatures whose every word and motion were not mine to invent. From the Galleon planet a second huge ship broke from orbit and vectored at full speed toward us. Moments later the Inner-Worlders responded with a virtual cloud of their small, sleek ships. Were they intending to attack me or each other? Did it matter? Either was madness. It was the game, all over again, alien civilizations. No different than any of the many scenarios Wormer or Lanidar or Agella and I had played. The question was, how I should play it. I had already pulled a minnow, I had intruded into the game. Made myself a central player, on stage, rather than off-screen. And yet I was still drawn to the subtler approach. What would either species learn if I simply annihilated their ships in a display of crude power? And was that really my place? I did not ask myself whether it was my business to interfere at all. It was not that I confused game with reality. I simply saw these two objectionable species as fools trapped in a pointless hostility. Didn't I have the right to intervene? Of course I did. I was not Minnow, I was Tuman. I was Ellimist, the brilliant loser. But now I knew so much more. My wisdom was deep. My powers were vast. Surely. And then there was the core fact that I was not playing against anyone. No opponent, just the game itself. The minimal move, then. If this were really a game I would simply alter the orbits of the two planets so that they did not pass so closely. Slow them down or speed them up to matching, opposite orbits. Put their sun between them. They lacked the technology to fight a war across those distances. But great as my powers were, they were not that great. And yet I could surely move an asteroid. Or two. Or 100. The system's asteroid belt was just beyond the orbit of Inner World. It was a simple calculation, well within my abilities. And I had sufficient brute power in my body/ship. I left the two sides to murder each other and withdrew to the asteroid belt. It would take some time, asteroids are not rocks to be casually flung about. But perhaps the two sides, seeing what I was about, would suspend their battle. I used my body/ship to nudge an asteroid, not a large one, out of its orbit. My engines were more than capable. The asteroid slid down the gravity well, vector to find a new, lower, faster orbit. I worked and waited. In a few weeks' time the two battling worlds had separated by enough to force them to suspend hostilities, a natural part of their conflict. It was only at their nearest approach that the two worlds could reach out and kill the other. I waited as my fleet of asteroids hurtled through space. And when the time came I slowed them, braked, nudged them into place. It took the better part of a year. And now the two planets were approaching convergence again, and I could see the war preparations in full swing, ships refitting and topping off their fuel. I waited till the two worlds were just edging into battle range. And then, one by one, I blew the asteroids apart. 74 asteroids of differing sizes became tens of thousands of meteors of every size. They were a dense, deadly cloud of projectiles that with each orbit would rip up anything that launched from either planet. The Galleons and Inner Wonders would be unable to reach each other at least till such time as they developed vastly more capable spacecraft. I had created an impenetrable orbital minefield. The Galleon war with the Inner Worlders was over. And I had found my mission, my purpose in the galaxy.